and welcome to episode 59 of Board Game Blitz, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network and a podcast about all things board games that you can listen to in less time than it takes to agree to play a game that your friends say is awesome, but really doesn't appeal to you. Board Game Blitz is sponsored by Grey Fox Games. In this episode, we discuss a couple games we've played recently, like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Jack the Ripper and West End Adventures, and King of Tokyo. Then we talk about some games that we love, even though they fall within categories of games that we tend to dislike or avoid. Finally, we wrap things up with a look at the etymology of the word anomaly. And now, here are your hosts,
Ambie
and Crystal. One announcement real quick before we hop into the main episode. In less than 3 weeks, Dice Tower West registration is going to open. That is a convention in Las Vegas that I help run and is now formally partnered with the Dice Tower, which Ambie and I are part of. So obviously I'm going to be talking about it because I'm excited and I've got my feet in all over the place with this one. But registration opens September 4th, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. And tickets are expected to go very quickly once they are on sale. So if you want to come play games with Ambie and I in Las Vegas, with Tom and Sam and Z and Eric and Suzanne and Mandy and the whole gang, I think they're all coming, you guys should get tickets quickly because we want to see you there.
Yay! Recently I played Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, Jack the Ripper, and West End Adventures.
That is quite a name. Yeah, it is. I know, I saw it in the show notes and I was like, dang, that's a lot of name.
So this is a standalone expansion to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And if you haven't heard of that, it's a cooperative story type game where you're solving a mystery by reading different passages in a book. So in Sherlock Holmes, there's a directory and a map of locations, and you can go anywhere to follow up on leads. So like you could look up someone's name in the directory, and then it tells you where to go in the book. And in each case has a book, and there's a section in the book for each location. And it has like a paragraph or a couple paragraphs of text that tells you what happens when you go there, and you get more information and more leads to follow up on. And it's very open-ended. Once you think you have enough information to solve the case, you stop and then you answer the questions in the back of the book, and you get scored based on how much you answered and how few leads you followed compared to Sherlock Holmes, who is like, I think he cheats or something because he always gets it really fast.
I mean, he is Sherlock Holmes, but still, if it's Benedict Cumberbatch, then then he gets a pass.
Yeah. So the original Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective has been reprinted as Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective Thames something. And I've played those original 10 cases. And the Jack the Ripper and West End Adventures is a standalone expansion. It has 6 West End Adventure cases that are from the original expansion, which was in the 80s. And it also has new Jack the Ripper cases. There's 4 new cases, and they're like all combined together, and they're about Jack the Ripper. So I played the 4 Jack the Ripper cases, and I played it a while ago, but I wanted to wait until I finished to talk about it. So with the Jack the Ripper cases, you don't solve anything until the last case because you can't actually stop the murders from happening. And it's based on actual events, so it's more gruesome than other cases because the other cases are fictional and it's less gruesome usually. But so I still enjoyed Jack the Ripper and it was interesting, but the conclusion was unsatisfying for us. I don't really remember what happened, but in my play notes I had that we were trying to visit locations and we were trying to find a place and we couldn't find where they were because they weren't in the directory. So it was okay, but unsatisfying. But I recently played Case 5, which is one of the West End Adventures, and I had a lot of fun with that. So I played that 2-player with Toby. It's nice with fewer players because there's a lot of reading. So you're just reading out loud and passing it to the next player to read. And we had some tea and we were saying we need a pipe too. We don't have a pipe, but it was really fun. We were able to solve the case, and I had a Sherlock feeling moment when I found a lead based on some information that wasn't like super obvious. And then I got to tell Toby that it's elementary. And
I can totally picture you doing that.
Yeah, so the Case 5 for the West End Adventures was really fun. And I'm hoping that, I haven't played cases 6 through 10 yet, but I'm hoping that they're also good because the Jack the Ripper was a little unsatisfying for us.
Well, we've talked about Mythos Tales on the
Yes.
podcast before, and Mythos Tales was originally a fan expansion to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective that then got published on its own. I know you played through... Did you play through all of Mythos Tales?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and I did as well, and you liked it more than I did, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was still disappointed in it too, but I think you were more disappointed.
Yeah.
Because I was probably expecting it to... I don't know.
I wanted to like it, but I disliked it strongly. And again, this is a caveat because I was playing with the first edition that came out via Kickstarter.
Yes,
and there
so
have
did
been
I.
subsequent editions of the game that have supposedly fixed a lot of the issues that I ran into. So that's not to say that the current version of Mythos Tales is bad, but the one I played had significant issues, and I did not enjoy it. And what sucks is I think I would like Sherlock Holmes or even these new ones, but I have been dissuaded from playing them because of my experience with Mythos Tales. And I recognize they're made by different people. It's a different thing, even though they're like structurally similar. But I'm less inclined now to do Sherlock, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. So I played the original one. It was published by Istari. I'm not sure what year. But that had a lot of
70s, right? With the original game?
Okay, maybe not. Okay,
Oh.
It's probably not that original printing that I played, but there was another reprint. But it had a lot of typos in it because it was translated from French, and one of the cases was unsolvable because they had changed the answer without changing the clues or something like that. So that was really disappointing. But I think it was republished recently by Asmodee. So this one, the Jack the Ripper and West End Adventures, is 2017, and I think the other one is 2016 or something. And I'm hoping because this is a new reprint that like all of the typos are fixed. So far we haven't found any typos with this one case, so I'm hopeful.
It's interesting because in a game like this, they sometimes utilize typos and mistakes as clues. Like especially when they have a newspaper that, a fake newspaper that they've printed, like in theory, a typo could be a clue. Or it could just be a typo. And so it's like when there are mistakes, then it makes, I think, the rest of those clues, it watered down a little bit, which is a bummer.
Yeah, and it's also hard to translate that in different languages.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, if it's created in one language, getting it into another and making it making the game experience also translate appropriately must be a real beast to do. So, you game designers who are doing that, more power to you. All right, well, I'm also talking about a game that is a little bit older, which feels kind of odd since we're just post-Gen Con. Like, everybody else is going to be talking about all of the hot games that came out at Gen Con. And I am talking about a Richard Garfield game, and he had a very hot game at Gen Con, Keyforge. But I'm not talking about Keyforge. I'm talking about King of Tokyo, which a lot of you have probably heard about and or played, but maybe some of you haven't. So King of Tokyo was published in 2011 by Yellow, and it was designed by Richard Garfield. King of Tokyo is kind of a King of the Hill style board game with a push your luck element. So all of the players take on a monster persona and have a little standee to represent their monster. And it can be monsters like King Kong or Mecha Bunny or a giant lizard that's like Godzilla. There's a whole bunch of them, especially with expansions. I was playing Space Penguin, which was pretty funny. And on your turn, you roll 6 dice, and then you have 2 rerolls that you can use, and the symbols on the dice will either give you energy that you can spend to buy upgrade cards, victory points, give you health back, and if you get specific sets of different symbols with some of the expansions, it will also allow you to upgrade your monster to draw from you have a deck of cards that have special abilities unique to your monster, and to get another token that will allow you to do either rerolls or get extra energy or life. And those both come from expansions, but they're nice additions to the game. You then attack whatever monster is in Tokyo, or if there is no monster in Tokyo, you head into Tokyo, and then the monster in Tokyo is attacking all the other players, and all the other players are attacking the one monster in Tokyo. You eventually can hop out of Tokyo if someone else attacks you, and you're just trying to get to 20 victory points or be the last person standing. It's honestly a lot of fun still. It's funny because these games that I played a lot, a number of years ago, I tend to not gravitate toward anymore because, like a lot of people, I do tend to want to play the hot new games. But somebody was new to our game group and brought this out and was really excited about playing it. And so I was like, yes, let's play King of Tokyo. That sounds like fun. And it was. I'm going to actually include this in our thematic discussion later. But yeah, I do like King of Tokyo. I think this is a great game for people who maybe grew up playing Yahtzee and want a similar style game with just a little bit extra added on. But then when you add in those expansions, it actually makes it a little bit more gamery. There's a little bit more to it, a little more strategy. So even if you're an experienced gamer, if you haven't played King of Tokyo, maybe give it a chance. Or if you haven't played it in a while, bust it out, because I actually had a lot of fun with it. In our last episode, our thematic segment was honestly a little bit negative, and while that is an important thing for us to do occasionally, it's not our favorite. So this week, we're talking about some games that we love that just happen to be in game genres that we're not very keen about. They might be genres that we typically stay away from entirely, or ones that we just, when we see them, just a little bit off-putting for whatever reason. So let's talk about some games that we love, Ambie.
Okay, so this is actually kind of hard for me because I like a lot of genres. But one genre that I usually don't like that much is area control, because I don't like attacking other areas and stuff and getting mine attacked.
As we discussed in the last episode.
Yeah. Yes, but there's a game that I really like called Adrenaline, which is basically area control, but there's a twist on it because the area is the other player, and you're actually directly attacking the other player. It's a first-person shooter themed game, so it's like a video game, but it's a board game, and you're shooting other players and trying to get your shoot markers on them, and whoever has the most when they die gets more points. So it
incentivizes you to attack the same person over and over, whereas in a lot of games, if you attack the same person over and over, you kind of seem like a jerk. But in this game, it makes sense. Like, it's how you score.
Yeah, and you want to kill them. But then, after someone dies, then they're worth less points. So you don't want to just kill the same person over and over because the other people are worth more points at that point. So it kind of...
Oh, so it helps. It simultaneously gives you a dedicated target at one point, but then it incentivizes you to move.
Changes it. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Mm-hmm. But it is, but it's really thematic. And I think what I like about it is that it's not all or nothing, because if you get a shot on someone, you'll get some points. And it's also not terrible getting people to shoot you, because the board is small and you get additional powers when you get shot, and you get more adrenaline, so you're like more powerful. And then you don't lose anything when you respawn, I think. Or you might lose a little bit, but it's really easy to get stuff back. So I really enjoy playing Adrenaline. It's also very thematic. I like the theme, how the theme works with it.
That's really cool. For me, a genre of games that I have been pretty vocal about not liking is racing games. The most notable of which is Formula D, or Formula Day in the original version. I hate that game. I think, I know that people love it, but it's so boring. Okay, but we're not talking about the ones we hate.
Yes,
we're talking about the ones we love. And I love Snow Tales. And most recently, I've really gotten keen on Downforce by Restoration Games. I think they did something pretty cool with Downforce. Snow Tales I like because it's not, it's funny, I like dice, but I like that Snow Tales isn't dice-based. I like that the way you move and steer your cart is all based on card play. I think it's very interesting and thematic, although what's funny is I almost always lose Snow Tales by a lot. I end up crashing my cart into the side of the thing, and when you crash, your hand gets muddled down with bad cards, so you don't have as many options to steer going forward. So it is one of those games where if you're doing poorly, you're gonna do worse, and then you're gonna do worse and worse and worse. So you can't really catch up, but it's still fun. And Downforce is great because while you bid on the cars, you aren't you don't have to be that car. You just own it. And so if it does well, you get some money, but you can bid on all the other cars. And so there is no singular thing that you have to focus on in Downforce, which is cool.
Yeah. So despite my love for 18xx games, I don't really like bidding in auctions. And that happens a lot at the beginning of 18xx games. But yeah, actual auctions kind of stress me out and I never know how much to bid for something. But I played Modern Art last year, I think, and I really liked it. And Modern Art is all just bidding, doing different auctions on art. And that's the whole game. You're just bidding on it in different ways. And I liked it. So that's kind of weird. But I think maybe why I liked it is because you kind of know the maximum price of what the art could be. So there's some sort of knowledge of how much to bid there. Because normally I don't know, like in Power Grid or something, I don't know how much to bid for something. But in Modern Art, you immediately, after the round ends, sell the art and get that money. So it's easier for me, I guess, to know how much it's going to be worth. I don't know. But yeah, I liked it.
So I like bidding in auction games. I think two of my favorites I'd be curious to know if you like. Have you played Stockpile?
Oh, yes.
Do you like Stockpile?
I liked it for a while and then got bored of it.
Okay. Have you played with the expansion or just the base game?
Yeah, I've played with the expansion.
Okay. And then the other one would be High Society. Have you played that one?
I have not played that, no.
That one, it's so simple, but it's a lot of fun, especially if you play with Z and the Murph brothers and everybody is singing 20,000 francs, 20,000 francs during the whole game. It makes a very light game much sillier and enjoyable. But honestly, the game is pretty nice too. So if you want like a simple bidding game similar to Modern Art, maybe check out High Society. And the art on the new edition is really pretty. I also generally am not a huge fan of zombie games, but I love Dead of Winter. And Jesse over on Twitter and in our BGG guild, he posted in a couple different places, thinks the same way I do.
Yeah, so he said on BGG, I don't like the post-apoc zombie genre, but Dead of Winter is solid. The story is what drives that game. It's a psychological drama. The zombies are really not important other than a mechanical threat. You could replace them with anything. But the story, the crossroads cards, the ongoing crises, they are so engrossing. It feels like a story about people, not zombies.
I would agree 100%. That game doesn't feel like it's about the zombies, even though they are an ever-present threat. And I did back Tiny Epic Zombies on Kickstarter, which is coming soon. And I am hopeful that I will like it too, only because I think gameplay-wise, it will be reminiscent of a couple of the other Tiny Epic games that I really like. So the fact that it's zombies, I went outside of my comfort zone, and I went ahead and backed it anyway, in hopes that I will like it. So here's hoping.
Cool. Okay, and the last category I could think of that I usually don't like is negotiation and, like, games with backstabbing, I guess. Well, okay, negotiation games because they usually have backstabbing because I don't like backstabbing. So negotiation usually stresses me out because I'm like, how can I trust you? I don't know if I can trust you to make this deal. But I talked about Sidereal Confluence a few episodes ago, which is a negotiation game with resource engine building too. But basically, in the game, you're just making trades with everyone and negotiating with everyone. But it tells you the conversion rate of a lot of the goods. And also, all the negotiations are binding. So you can't backstab people. And that's in the rules of the game. So that's why I like it, because you can trust people. Once they say they're going to make a deal, then that will happen. So I guess I like negotiation with people as long as there's no threat of backstabbing.
So I have, as I mentioned in my recently played segment earlier, I think King of Tokyo actually falls into a category of games that I tend to not like, and that is games that involve player elimination. So I generally, and this was the case in a lot of older board games back in the, 60s, 70s, 80s, there were more player elimination style games, and I think that is less common now. But in a game like King of Tokyo, often somebody isn't eliminated super early. I actually also, there's another one called Welcome to the Dungeon and simultaneously Welcome Back to the Dungeon that also has player elimination that I like. Although admittedly I played that recently and it was with all new people. And so they were all being very hesitant to do anything. So I was like, no, it's fine. Here we go. And I went into the dungeon once and got killed, and went into the dungeon a second time and got killed. So then I was out of the game way earlier than anybody typically is, because they were putting in all the strongest monsters to the dungeon and not realizing that, like, they might have to go through it. And so it was very, very amusing, because I was like, no. Like, as a person, I'm like, there's no way the 9 is on the bottom of the deck. Nobody would have put the 9 in first. Oh, wait, they did. So it was amusing, though. Some other categories that I don't like. I don't generally enjoy abstract games that much, but I love Azul. I'm not always keen on games with multi-use cards, but I love Race for the Galaxy. And I don't typically like Westerns, but I really enjoy Flick 'em Up.
When you mentioned abstracts, and I used to think that I don't like abstracts much, but I think every abstract I've played, I've enjoyed. I just don't seek them out. So it's kind of weird, because I like Azul. I like Patchwork is pretty abstract. Even when I played Go with someone, I liked it. I just don't like the competitive scene of chess and Go, I think.
Yeah.
So I can't think of an abstract that I dislike, but I thought I didn't like abstract. So it's interesting, even some genres that you think you might not like, maybe you don't dislike them.
Maybe that's the case for me. I think in my head abstracts are boring.
Yeah.
And so then if they aren't, that's when I like them.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an abstract game that I think you and I played. It was one of the play-to-wins at BlitzCon. I think it was called Kulami. It had marbles and wooden pieces. And I thought I was going to hate it, and I didn't. And I'll look it up real quick to see if I have the name right. But I was pleasantly surprised by it. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I think that happens every time I play an abstract game. I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it is. It's called Kulami, Kulami. And it came out in 2011. But yeah, it was in the play-to-wins at BlitzCon this past year, and I really enjoyed it. I wonder, maybe I should pick it up. Oh gosh, I'm saying I don't like abstract games, and then I want to buy an abstract. Well, let's jump over to Twitter, where we got some more feedback from our followers over there. Jamie Maltman said he doesn't care for hidden role or hidden trader games most of the time, but Battlestar Galactica is one of his favorites. I obviously agree that Battlestar Galactica is awesome. Meeple Lady chimed in and said she agrees with him there. And then Eric from What's Eric Playing also mentioned that he doesn't like social deduction typically, but his outliers were A Fake Artist Goes to New York, Insider, and Deception Murder in Hong Kong. I like all those games too, so good call, Eric. Board Game Cheerleader said that she doesn't typically like co-op games, but she really likes the non-communication hidden cards in The Grizzled. And I think that's interesting, because co-op is a genre that I love, and The Grizzled is probably lower down on my list. So that's interesting. I wonder if it fills a specific void there that doesn't work for me, but works for you. That's pretty cool.
That's interesting. I like The Grizzled, and I like co-op, so I'm no help.
I mean, I don't dislike The Grizzled. It's just not, like, if I'm going to play a co-op game, it's not one of the first ones I reach for. I got to give a shout out to Jared Hunnefeld, who said he doesn't typically care for old roll and write games, but he can't get enough of those Nightmare games. And as a new fan of Nightmare, I agree, Jared. The Nightmare games are awesome. I have the board now. I want to get Nightmare 2 so much, because Nightmare 2, I think, is the one I'm going to enjoy the most. What else did we get over on Instagram?
Yeah, so there were a bunch on Instagram, too. Becca's Bites said, Stockpile. I'm not usually one for stock games, but it's a lightweight, unlike some other stock games, and there's a playfulness to the bidding, at least in our home. I like it two-player on the more difficult board side because the volatile nature makes it more press your luck than just stock. My husband loves stock games, and so he gets really excited to play one that I enjoy.
That's cool, and that's kind of what I was saying
cool.
earlier. Mm-hmm. Like Stockpile's fun, and I don't typically like stock games, but that one is great. I love it a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that her husband likes stock games, and then so there's a game that they both really like in that category that they can play together.
That's really cool. And that's an interesting point. Like, if you like a genre and your friend doesn't, I would imagine often there's something that you can find that kind of fills both voids, or both people can enjoy. Were there any others over on Instagram?
There are a few that had similar ones to what we said. Board Game Training Wheel says Downforce. I don't usually enjoy sports games or sport-adjacent games, but I love Downforce. So in this one, it's all sports, not just racing.
I haven't played a lot of other games that are sports themed. Like, I've never played the couple of baseball games that I know about. I've never played Blood Bowl. So I don't think racing games might be the only sports games I've played. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I've played baseball highlights and I like that. But yeah, I feel like there aren't that many, or the theme usually doesn't attract me with the sports. And Meeple Overboard said, Azul is an abstract game that I really enjoy. Same with Topiary, though that one hits fewer of the abstract game general definitions. They're both great time games, but usually not my category. So another person with abstract...
It seems like there's a lot of genres that people tend to dislike more. Like, it's interesting that no one mentioned space. At least not that I saw. And
oh, yeah, that's true.
There are a lot of space games, including a lot of bad space games. But I think there are enough good ones that most people wouldn't think of that genre as something they dislike, because there's a lot of really awesome ones.
But a lot of people did mention zombies.
Yeah, which is in the same kind of boat. So
yeah,
why?
That's interesting.
Why are zombies so dividing and like space isn't? Do you think it's?
I don't know.
Because really, they're both sci-fi. Truthfully, like,
but maybe zombies is just more specific, because space is very general. So
yeah, and I guess space,
there can be a lot of different
space doesn't have. Yeah, space doesn't have to be sci-fi. Space can be based in reality. Like, a game like Terraforming Mars is theoretically set in reality. Like, we're not there yet, but getting there seems possible.
Yeah.
Whereas a zombie apocalypse seems less likely to happen. So, what is it about these games that make them stand out for us or for the other people that chimed in about this topic?
So I think with all of them, they were exceptions to the reason that we don't like that category. Like, the reason I don't like area control is because I don't like getting beat up on and not getting anything for my work. But then Adrenaline fixes that, because it's not bad to get beat up on and you get partial credit. Oh gosh, now it sounds like a test. But yeah, so there's like little tweaks in the game that make it feel a little different than you're used to in that genre.
That's true. That would apply to a couple of the ones I mentioned as well. Basically, the lesson here is, if you don't like a genre, that shouldn't be a reason to immediately discount a game.
Yeah, because a game is more than just the genre. There's a lot of stuff to a game.
Well, and this is an interesting defense in favor of what everyone likes to refer to as the hype train. Often, I mean, there are games that get overhyped. That's definitely a thing. It definitely exists. But usually, if a lot of people are talking about a game and they're saying, oh my gosh, this game is awesome, I love it so much, there's often a reason for that. And that is sometimes the fact that the game is just that good. So, for instance, for me, I've heard a lot of good things about Western Legends. I don't like Western games, so I am not really that keen to play it, but a lot of people say they love it, so maybe at some point I'll give it a try. This is not a note to my game group to bring it to game night, for the record. But yeah, like stuff like that. I think everybody should maybe step outside of their comfort zone occasionally, and you may find something that you really love that you never would have tried otherwise. And this applies to life, too.
Life lessons from Board Game Blitz.
The more you know. For this week's etymology segment, since we were looking at games that don't quite fit into our usual tastes, I'm going to look at the origins of the word anomaly. The English noun anomaly dates back to the 1570s, when it meant unevenness. In the 1660s, its definition shifted to mean deviation from the common rule. And in 1722, it then settled to be known as something abnormal or irregular. The word can be traced back to the Latin word anomalia, which came from the Greek anomalia, which meant inequality, and the Greek abstract noun anomalos, which meant uneven or irregular. The roots of the word can be broken down further: an, which means not, and homolos, meaning even. If we only stick to what we know, we may be missing out on some new and wonderful experiences that are hiding in the anomalies in our life.
And that's it for this week's Board Game Blitz. Visit our website, boardgameblitz.com, for video and blog content, as well as to get links to all our social media pages, including our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Board Game Geek Guild. This episode was sponsored by Grey Fox Games. Make sure you head over to Kickstarter right now because Run, Fight, or Die Reloaded is going to be wrapping up their campaign soon, and this is a zombie game that you don't want to miss out on. Grey Fox Games, quality games cleverly crafted. Enjoying the show? There are 2 easy things you can do to show us some love. The first is to head to iTunes or your podcast provider of choice and rate and review the show. 5-star reviews help increase the visibility of our show so other people can find it more easily. Second is to become a patron. For as little as $1 a month, you can unlock access to unedited episodes and our private Slack channel, which lets you talk to us and other Blitzketeers directly. Just head to patreon.com/BoardGameBlitz to become a patron today. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Morrow. Technical support provided by Toby Mao. Board Game Blitz is a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. Check out the other shows in the network by visiting dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, what game am I wanting to play? Hey, I just saw you. And this is crazy, but Blitz said try stuff, so play it maybe. Bye everyone!
Bye!
For as little as $1 a month, you can unlock access... For as little as $1 a month, you can unlock access to unedited episodes in our private Slack channel, which lets you talk to us and other Blitzketeers. That word is hard to say. Blitzketeers. Blitzketeers. Okay. For as little as $1 a month, you can unlock access to unedited episodes. Unedited. Sorry,
I know the whole sentence is awkward. Boom chicka, alliteration time. I'm gonna come up with a new song each time. It's alliteration time. Woo! All right, guys, last week we asked you to retheme a nautical legacy game for aquatic animals that are looking for something. So what game was that, Ambie?
That was Searching Seals Seafall.
I love that I always make you say the hard part. All right, so this week we want you to retheme a stained glass window building game for an old wise person wearing baggy clothes.
Also, if you're enjoying these alliterations, Chip Beauvais, who made them, has a Twitter account called A Little Alliteration. It's at Lit Alliteration. He's doing a lot more of them on that Twitter account that you can solve.
Yeah, and Chip has been coming up with a couple of other novelty accounts recently, including at Magic Word Square. I'm not quite sure how it works, but glancing at it, but it looks like, so it's a set of 5 words that read the same horizontally or vertically, and that's interesting puzzle building type stuff. So yeah, go check out Chip's stuff, because he's doing some really neat stuff over on Twitter.